So we are seeing some temporary closures as a result of that. I looked this morning and there are, according to the records, 1,888 programs that are open with the capacity to serve 161,227 children. I do see those going kind of up and down daily and weekly. So there's a little bit of shift in that pretty frequently right now. There are, since March through today, there have been, or at least through this morning, there have been 409 children that have been reported to the Division of Child Care that were positive for COVID, and 647 staff. 96 of those I would consider active. In other words, 96 out of that combined total of over 1,000 are within the last 2 weeks, the last 14 days. So that's a lot more normally active than what we typically see. In terms of our CARES funding that was awarded to the Division of Child Care and Early Childhood Education, we have used all of the funding for supplemental payments that we had allocated out of the CARES Act. And so I just want to spend a second reminding you all what that means. We are continuing to pay for low-income children out of our regular block grant. We have that running in conjunction with the governor's executive order for the pandemic, but I cannot pay for essential workers or children who are over income out of low-income child care funds. That is against the law and regulations. So I just want to make sure providers know that. We will continue, if you have children that are low income on vouchers, you will get the supplemental amounts, but we have used the 11 million that was allocated for supplemental payments, and I used that for essential workers up until the last couple of weeks. So again, continue with low income, but I cannot pay any more for families that are over the income out of regular block grant. We are processing a final payment for sanitation PPE. There were a few providers that had not received that yet, so we're doing a final payment, and that funding will be exhausted as well. We do have funding for deep cleaning. We still have over $2 million for programs that have a positive case, either staff or child, and need to close a classroom or their program and do a deep cleaning or sanitation. So we're still good there. I continue to see those coming in. If somebody can put that email, I think it's deepcleaning@dhs.arkansas.gov, but if somebody will put that in the chat box so that everyone will have it. That's if you have a case and you need to have your building cleaned, you can submit those invoices to that email address for reimbursement on that payment. And we do have funding there. And we also have reached our capacity on the essential workers. We are at 6,371 that were approved. Those will run through December 31st. And I believe that will complete that funding allocation as well. I know that Ashlyn and Kelly are on, and we're going to talk. We've had some questions about, I'm going to shift to background checks for just a moment. And I know Kelly has an update about the call center for COVID at the health department. So we've had some questions about background checks for therapists that come in to provide services for children that may be on an IEP. I know that we have a letter that's going out to help hopefully explain and support what could happen or should be happening. But I'll let Ashlyn and Kelly talk about that if they don't mind, and then Kelly can give us an update on the call center for during the holidays.
Thank you, Tanya. Kelly, I'll take the therapist one, and then you can talk about the call center if that's okay. Good morning, you guys. So we've received some questions about therapists and the background checks that they would need in order to be in and about your facility. And so we have in the past, we have talked with the therapist and you guys just to work together in order to run the background checks for them. And so that's really where we are today as well, where we're just asking you all to work with the therapists that come in and out of your facility, and then also to go ahead and give them a copy of their cleared background check. So if you are the facility that is running and initiating the criminal background check and the maltreatment check for the therapist, if you would just go ahead also and give them a copy of that, because the other of you that maybe you have a therapist traveling in, but they already got their background check from another facility, then all you all will be doing is looking for the piece of paper that they bring to you to say that they have been cleared. So there is a letter going out. Hopefully you'll get that by the end of the week anyway. I think it's going out today. Where it'll explain this information to you, but it's just working together, you guys, in terms of making sure that everybody has their background checks that are needed and required by the minimum licensing requirements. So if you guys can work together to make that happen, we would certainly appreciate it. So 2 things to remember: work with them to run it in the first place. If they're coming to you and they've already gotten it from another facility, that is acceptable. They should just be able to bring you a copy of that. All right, Kelly.
Good morning. Just a quick update on the Arkansas Department of Health call center that you all call where you report your positive cases. They will be closed for the normal state holidays. So Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. So if you needed to get in touch with someone during that time, you'll just have to leave a message, and then that will not be returned to you until they open back up for business. So just wanted to let you know during those days, which are most days that you all are closed as well, they won't have anyone that can answer your questions at that time.
Hey, gang, there's a couple of questions in the chat box. So let me clarify. I am talking about voucher funds and COVID CARES funding. So we still have funding for children that are eligible for low-income child care assistance or vouchers. We will continue to add children. We cannot take any additional children for essential workers. Those children are over income, and that was out of the CARES Act, and that funding is one time. So we have used almost 30 million of the 41 million, and all we have left in that is we're processing a final payment to programs for PPE and cleaning supplies that did not receive any yet. Then that funding will be completed. We also have funding if your program has a positive and needs to close for deep cleaning. And we will finish out the year for the essential workers. The commitment for those families, the 6,000 plus families that we have, was through December 31st. So we will honor that and continue that through the end of the year. But the supplemental amounts that we've been paying, we do not have any additional funding to pay on the essential workers, only for low-income families that are eligible. So I did see a note, Robin, thank you for that question on paying supplement income for voucher children. Ivory, if you or anybody from the CCDF team is on, the last payment update, Robin, I have is for the middle of September, which could mean that there is a delay. So if someone from Ivory's team can just check that and type that into the box or let us know, that would be most appreciated. If we are, Robin, we will get on those and start processing those payments. We usually do those in 2-week increments, but we will get you guys all caught up. I think that if we've delayed, it's probably because we were trying to make sure that we didn't spend money out of the wrong pot of money and get ourselves into legal trouble. So because we don't have any additional money for supplements for the essential workers, only for low income now. So that might be why there's a little bit of delay. I'm going to shift here. I will talk and answer questions about all of this, but I've asked a really important colleague of mine to be on to share something very exciting that has to do with our automation in background checks. So many of you know that we've moved to criminal background checks through state police in the automated INA, or Information Network of Arkansas system. But my good friend and colleague, Misha Martin at the Division of Children and Family Services, whose team processes child maltreatment registry background checks, has really been working hard to also do some things to automate and make things much easier for you all. So I've asked Misha to be on, and she is quite the technology guru. So if we can make sure we screen share with Misha, I think she and her colleagues are going to walk us through how you all will begin processing your maltreatment registries in a much more efficient and I think streamlined manner. So Misha.
Thank you, Tanya. Your team has already given me the ability to share my screen. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present today to you all. I'm really excited to talk about our new process for the Central Registry and Child Maltreatment. And no fear, I actually have the experts for my team on as well. So I'm going to do the presentation, but the experts are here and on, and we are ready and able to take your questions. This is also the first time that I'm giving this presentation, so I'm sure that I'm going to miss things. So, if I do, please put in the chat, we'll answer. So just to tell you a little bit of who is on that will help me with questions, I have Dennis Robbins, who is over the Central Registry, Dennis Robbins and John Loudon, Miranda Rains, who's also been in support in this work, and then Kevin Grace, the Deputy CIO for DHS is on. And I think that I'm very tech savvy, but we all know that Kevin's probably going to have to tell me how the system really works. So just one second, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys can see it. Ashlyn, I can see your face. So can you tell me, do you see it in presentation mode? You do see it in presentation. Okay, great. So just moving on, I wanted to sell you on the benefits of the Central Registry, the new process first before I actually tell you how it works. So there's really two steps to this Central Registry new process. One is, and many of you have been using, is generating an electronic form. So hopefully some of you have already been using that. So that's really step one. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the benefits are it's mobile friendly, so you can fill out the form on your app. There should be a reduction in return forms. A lot of times the Central Registry gets incomplete forms, so that mandatory information is not given. With this new electronic form, it requires you to fill out the fields that have to be inputted. So it also ensures that there's accuracy of the results, because information is legible. I can't tell you how many forms we get where we can't read the handwriting on them. And also, if you use the new form, you'll be able to put an email address in, which is important because we are trying to eliminate snail mail. So no snail mail to send the results, or to send the form, and no snail mail to get the results. And then the second part of the process that we're talking about, which is new and went live yesterday, is that you can electronically submit the form and make the payment via credit card or e-check. Now, some of you guys are nonprofits and you don't have to make that payment, so we still have we built in all those exceptions. And then also the benefit of this new process is there should be no lost form. So the minute it is electronically submitted to us, it is tracked in our system. Not only can we at DCFS, Children and Family Services, see it through the entire process, we have also given child care, DCC, ECE, access to our system so that they can see and track what forms are coming in related to child care. And the biggest benefit, if I sell you on nothing else, is faster results, right? So you guys have to have the background checks as well as the Central Registry checks in order to get your employees onboarded and moving forward. And so we want to accommodate and give you faster results, and faster results happen when we go to an electronic process. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so getting a little bit more detailed, I'm going to share this PowerPoint with Ashlyn and Tanya, and they can feel free to share it. So some of these links are live in the PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you our website. But you can, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and go to our internet site where you can get detailed instructions on how this process is going to work. So what you see now is our page on DCFS related to the Central Registry, and we walk you step by step by step as to how to do this process. So if you walk away from this presentation and you're like, that was a lot, then please go to our website and review the step by step. And step one is filling out the form, just like you currently do. And to give you a little bit of background on that process, why do you still have to fill out a paper form and sign and notarize it? Because the law requires it. So we couldn't get around the fact that forms have to be notarized, and so they have to be printed out and signed. So once you complete that form, which I'm going to walk through that process, now the new process allows us to electronically submit those. So we're going to start going into detail into creating the electronic form, if I can figure out how to work. So creating the electronic form, again, here's a link in the PowerPoint, and then I'm going to walk you through one. I filled one out last night, so I'm going to walk. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you think you're showing us something, I'm not seeing it on my
Okay.
screen.
Here we go. Ashlyn, do you see the form generator now?
Yes, ma'am, I see
Okay,
it.
perfect. Thank you, Ashlyn. So we'll create a form just like your employee would do. Now, some providers we've heard from in other spaces, they have the employee come into their office and they fill out this form together. So I'll walk you through and tell you why that could be beneficial. So the employee could do it at home, or the potential employee could be sitting beside you at your office and fill out this form. So you'll go to the website, create a form, the central registry form generator. It's very, very important. You guys are child care facility, that you select this second radio button here. You are a potential or current employee of a child care or residential facility. That is important because by clicking that choice, you are making sure that they are filling out the right information that will then go to DCC ECC. So because I've already filled a form out last night, it remembers, and I'm just going to go through. Now note that where the asterisk is, that is a mandatory field that the employee has to fill out. Some of these are not mandatory fields, but is useful information to DCC ECE, but we didn't want to prevent an employee from being able to move forward if they didn't have the absolute mandatory. So I'm not even going to fill in these next two because it's not mandatory. But here's the facility email address, which I'm just putting in my email address. It pre-populated an address that I had previously put in. Again, licensing specialist, great information to have, but not mandatory. You do have to put in a facility number. So you're going to need to make sure if you are not filling out this form with your potential employee that you give the facility number to the potential employee, because they will have to have it as they're filling out this request for a central registry form. Applicant name. Again, I filled it out last night, so it remembers. Now, this is important on this email address. It asks for the applicant's email address, but whatever you put in this email address field, this is where the form is going to be sent. So if you're sitting in the office with your potential employee filling out the form and you want to fill it out and notarize it right there, this is where you need to put the email address of where you want the form to go. It pre-populated because I'd previously filled out the form. Do you have additional addresses? No. If you did, it would give you an option. Do you list any children? You'll need to list children. If there are additional children, I'm going to go back and say no, just to keep it simple. And then once you hit submit form, it is going to email you or email the person who has the address that you put into the form. It's going to email the form to them. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. And I'm going to show you. So you're going to get an email that looks like, whoops, it didn't go. Let's try again. You're going to get an email that looks like this. This is the actual email that came to me last night. There is an attachment, a PDF attachment. You will need to print off that PDF and have it signed and notarized. So either you as the provider can print it off, or you, the employee, potential employee, can print it off, have it notarized. There's also the additional information that comes in the email to tell you the next steps. So this link provided in the email gives you the next step in the process, which we're going to talk about. But I just wanted to show you the email. Kevin, do you want to interject as to the secure email issue and logging in? I just want to give them a little heads up about that.
Sure. So because we had good, I guess we're not afternoon yet. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin Grace. I am, as Misha pointed out, Deputy CIO here for DHS. Because we have sensitive information in these forms, social security number, date of birth, et cetera, we have some federal regulations that require us to deliver those emails securely. So our email system will try to deliver using a technology called TLS. Most current modern day email systems, especially if you're using Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, Hotmail, all of those or if you're an Office 365 customer or you're a Google Apps customer, any of those platforms are going to accept a TLS encrypted email. However, if you're running an on-premise old email server, or if your organization is using an outdated email server and your system will not accept TLS encrypted email, when our email system tries to deliver the email, you may it may say, hey, I want to deliver this securely via an encrypted channel. And if your email system doesn't accept that, then what happens is our system will say, oh, I can't deliver that securely, and we'll email you a link to come back to our, we call that a secure envelope, and it will come back to our system, and it'll make you create a password and some of that kind of stuff, but it'll let you log in and retrieve the email from a website, essentially. So that's one problem. If you're not getting the emails, you may get a link if your system's not TLS compliant. The other problem we see is sometimes they get marked as spam or as junk. And so, check your junk folders, check your spam folders. If you can't find it, let us know, and we'll try to go track those down. Those are the two things we see most often.
And before I move into the next phase, if you are old school and you have already decided, even while I'm talking, you have no plans of changing from your snail mail, which is okay right now. You can continue to snail mail, even though I promise if you will give this a try, you will see some benefits. You might have to work out some kinks. I still need you to use this form. So any old forms that you have, you need to get rid of them and not use them. This is the one form that we are using. And so it's very important that you use this form, that you go on our website, that the potential employee fills this out. I won't go over the benefits again because I covered them, but this will make sure that we are at least getting accurate results to you, because we have the right information and it's legible to read and you are using the right form. We have a lot of issues with people using the wrong form, and that causes delays as well. So if everyone will move to using this form, it will improve the process at least. So that's really step one. So even if you are going to continue to snail mail, I need you to pay attention and use this particular form. So I'm going to move on to the next step. Oh, I'll show you the form. So the form that was attached to that email looks similar to this. As you can see, it's specific to DCC ECE. And then it's 2 pages. And so you see that notary section. That's why it's so important that you print off the form and get it notarized. But this is the PDF attachment that is attached to that email. Okay, so moving on to the second part. So you got your form, you print it off, you have it notarized. Your employee two things can happen. You as the provider can upload it, which I'm going to show you the process, or you can have your employee upload it. Either way works. And so let me stop sharing and go back to our website. Okay. So if you're back on our website and you're following step by step, we're now at the second step, which is the form upload. You're going to upload the form. Once you click here, it's going to take you to this website. Now, I did a dummy form last night, so I'm just going to show it to you in PowerPoint, but I wanted to show you the website because I don't want to do another dummy form. The Central Registry folks are going to get confused by all my submissions related to Mr. Martin. So here's what you will see is you will, again, have to type in some additional information, but this information is so that we can track your form all the way through the system, and DCC, not only Children and Family Services can, but also Child Care and Early Childhood Education can track it as well, so they know when it's coming in, when they get results. As you can see here, you'll type in full name, email address. Again, you're clicking that second radio button. That's the only one. Don't try and, we've had some providers be like, but I didn't know, and so I went, no, you're a child care facility. If you do not click that you are a child care facility, it will not get to the right place. So that's very important. You'll continue to scroll down and fill out the information. Again, when I say you, it could be you as the provider, or it could be you, the potential employee that is uploading the form. And so you'll have this selection if you are a nonprofit or not, which you guys probably know that if you are a nonprofit, we don't require payment, but if you are not a nonprofit, then it's a $10 payment. and then you'll continue to fill out this information. You'll have to upload the form. So you can see here, choose form. You'll have to upload the form. If you select that you're a nonprofit, you will have to show proof of a nonprofit, and it will give you the option to upload the form there as well. Oops. At the bottom of this page, which is not on the PowerPoint, it'll say submit. There's a submit button. It will not let you submit if you do not fill out all the mandatory fields. And just like the form, the mandatory fields are noted by asterisk. You can see those red asterisks. So once you hit submit, it's going to take you to a different website for payment. And so here's the payment. And I didn't walk step by step because I'm hoping everybody has paid for something online before. And this is very similar. You're going to have to put your credit card information in. Again, that could be the potential employee, or if you're a child care provider and you pay for it, it can be your information and you pay for it. We don't really care who pays for it. We just need a payment. And so you can either have the employee pay for it, or you as the provider can pay for it. And you'll walk step by step, just like you do with any other online app, and provide credit card information. There is a $1 fee in addition to the $10. So it's a $1 fee above the $10 to pay for the electronic submission, but that's not much more than snail mail. So you're really not paying much more for this electronic submission than you would if you snail mailed. And again, you should get much faster results. Once you submit that payment, you will get an email that you see here. This is the email that I received last night, confirming that the submission happened. Again, that email comes to the place where you put the email address in the prior screen. So if the potential employee puts their email address in, then they're going to get the email. If the daycare or childcare provider puts your email address in that screen, you're going to get the email. But you do get an email confirmation, which you can see here on the PowerPoint, that the submission occurred. So if for some reason it's been, 12 days, 14 days, and you haven't got email results, if you call the central registry, which I'll provide the numbers here in a minute, and ask, you'll want to reference that request ID so that they can look it up in the system. And there's some additional information that's important to note related to child maltreatment results. Okay, so now moving on to 7 to 10 days has passed, or maybe sooner. If it's a low time, if it's not a busy time, we get a ton of requests around August and September related to school starting, but maybe you've submitted one now and we have less volume. It may be less than 7 to 10 days. You will get the email results. So those email results are going to go again to the email that you provided or that the person provided with the results. They are also going to DCC ECE at the same time. So we worked closely with DCC ECE so that they know where their registry checks are in our system, but they've also set up a shared inbox so that results are going to that shared inbox as well. You'll get an email that looks just like this. This is a results email. There is a PDF attachment with a letter that shows that the employee or potential employee had a true finding. If it's not a true finding, you get separate information that I didn't put in this PowerPoint, but very similar to what you've received in the past. You're just going to be receiving it via email. And I wanted to share helpful information. So helpful contact information. So if you have questions, you can always contact the central registry, including there's a website there. And then both Dennis and John's information are included here so that you can ask questions of them. And I am happy to take questions. Let me stop sharing my screen because I can't actually see the chat. Okay, now I can. So I'm happy to take questions related to the central registry. So I'm going back up here.
I'm checking those, Misha, right now.
Okay, great.
There's a couple of questions about 501c3 status. We are a nonprofit but have been told we do not have to pay with the online system. So that when you check those boxes that Misha just walked you through, if you check the nonprofit status and provide that information, that will clear you for a non-payment as a nonprofit agency.
That's correct. And hey, Tanya, let me show you something else here because we worked closely with IT, and I hope this will work. I didn't practice this, but
and let let me differentiate. What Misha is talking about is for child maltreatment registry. The other background checks go through the INA portal, and that is a different payment and process. So I just want to make sure that folks understand. These were always going to separate entities, but you sent all of your paper to the Division of Child Care in the past. But now you're going to be going to the INA portal for your state and FBI background checks, and you'll be using this information for your child maltreatment.
Yeah, and you can see on the screen here, we did put some prior, here's some child care facilities. They will pre-populate. Now, if they're not in here, you can always add a new one. But the system does know some of the child care facilities that we work with regularly, and we'll know if you're a nonprofit or not. But again, I would recommend that the employer do the upload of the child care facility, because if you are a nonprofit and you click yes, you are a nonprofit, when it scrolls down here, I don't know, it's not doing it at the moment. Are you a nonprofit? It did it for me last night. Yes. It typically asks you to upload proof that you are a nonprofit. So I'm not sure, I must be doing something wrong at the current moment. But typically when you say, are you a nonprofit? Yes, it asks you to upload something to prove that, which is why I'm recommending that the upload process really be the employer, not the employee, but it can be either. Okay, so I see the question, is paying online the only option for child maltreatment? No, you can continue to snail mail. You will continue to wait for results, and you are going to continue to be frustrated with us. But if you are just adamant that you want to snail mail and send a check in, then as of right now, and probably for a while, that is still an option for you. But just know you're going to wait longer.
Thank you. I'm trying to go back up and see. Let me just make sure, guys. I see there are questions, it appears in here, that may have to do with the overall background check system with INA. So I'm trying to sort through. So just give us a moment. There is one. Are we able to pay for more than one child maltreatment check? So, Misha, can you talk to that one?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I meant to include that. That is one thing that we were not able to handle. So right now, with this system, it is a one form at a time payment. So, one form at a time with payment. You can't wait and put 10 forms together and pay one. So that is one of the downsides to this system. So if you're an employer who regularly hires and has 10 people on board at once, then maybe you do want to continue to snail mail with the check. But again, that will be a longer processing time because you got to wait on it to come in the mail. But please do use the new form and include an email address, because even if you snail mail a request in with a check, if you will use the correct form, we will email you the results.
Thanks, Misha. One question, and I'm assuming this is for maltreatment. Is there a way for us to check the results if we don't get anything back? And I think Misha really talked about reaching out to John Loudon or Dennis Robbins, and that information that we will share and put on our website and the PowerPoint will be available to you all. But then you can also go to the agency's website and to the Division of Children and Family Services and see that step-by-step process that Misha talked about. And I'm certain that their contact information is there as well. So Misha, you want to say anything?
Oh, no, I just saw a question that I really wanted to answer. Thank you.
Yeah, there is one about school districts considered nonprofit. The question was, are programs associated with school districts? So early childhood programs that are on a school campus run by the school.
There's a question here that I'm going to need Kevin's help on, because I know that we got this question in another, and I can't remember the answer or if we addressed it. Is it accurate that you can only use the email address once? For example, you cannot use the HR manager's email address and has to use potential employees. I'm confused about that. I have filled out FormStack multiple times and used my email address with different names.
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
Okay, I think the email and the phone number is only when they're making an appointment for fingerprints.
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, it's associated with the criminal background check. And one of the things I was going to say, if I can share my screen real quickly, if you just go to the humanservices.arkansas, I know that, we're throwing quite a bit at everyone. So one of the things I was going to show was that if you just go to the, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, Kevin.
Okay, so is it on the website?
Yes.
Okay, so if you go to this humanservices.arkansas.gov website, which is the main DHS website, there's a background checks button here on the right. And so, there's criminal background checks and the central registry checks. And so sometimes that, I'm a dumb IT guy. So I know for me, all that program lingo was sort of hard. So if you kind of go to this page, it sort of kind of walks you through the criminal background check piece. And then at the bottom gives you a link to the DCFS maltreatment check page, which is what Misha showed you earlier that walks you through that step. So if you get confused about which one is which, you can always go to the main page, just start with background checks, which will be the criminal side. And then that will link you over to the maltreatment side as well. So I just wanted to point that out that, it can be confusing. But I think you can submit in terms of the background, the DCFS maltreatment registry request. You can do one of these, and use multiple email addresses. What really matters here is that this, you'll see this pop up, as Misha talked about, this email address. If you type this wrong, then that's where he's going to try to send the form to, so you won't get the form. And then same type thing when you go to the, let me go back here, when you go to the actual request form. So if you, whatever email address that you type in on this submitter form, that's where they're going to try to send notification to. So just be very careful on email addresses and you should be good to go.
So I see another question and I'm a little confused, Tanya, maybe it makes sense to you, but I think it's related to us. Does the authorization form pop up for them to complete as well? When we submitted in September, it didn't pop up for us to complete. It returned us along with all of the other forms. Do we have prompt staff to find authorization permission form? Is that related? Is that not related to central registry?
I think that one is probably the broader INA criminal background check process, Misha. So, and I know we've said this multiple times. This is a lot of information to process, gang. This recording will be on our website. We're available to walk you through. Kevin and Misha have showed you on the website where to go, really to follow a step-by-step process. But just know that what Misha and Kevin have presented today and what they're talking about is for child maltreatment only. We will go back and answer these questions, guys. I just wanted to give Misha and Kevin, they are very busy folks, and I wanted to get them in the queue first and get them able to go on with their day. But I know there's some other questions in there. One question that I had, Misha, and I asked it, but we moved on, is the question about school districts. I'm assuming they're considered nonprofits, but I didn't want to say yes without you clarifying, but that was a legitimate question from someone. Is if you're running an ABC program and you're associated with a school district, is that a nonprofit?
And maybe Dennis or John can tell me how we can figure that in the system. I think we do make teachers pay, but maybe Dennis or John can help me remember how we can figure it in the system.
Generally speaking, anyone that works at a school is not a nonprofit. The statute says that they pay for theirs.
So yeah, that's what I thought. Teachers do pay. Teachers and school districts do pay the $10 fee.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going back through. Are there any other questions that are really specific to child maltreatment registry?
Oh, if I may, that list that you were seeing on when you're submitting the forms, that's a list of nonprofits. It doesn't include the ones that are not nonprofit. So if you're not a nonprofit and you're looking for your facility name on there, it shouldn't be there. You would choose other and then manually populate that.
Misha, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So he's talking about when you go to upload your form and it says facility nonprofit organization, some of your organizations are pre-populated. You can find them, you can easily search. but those are the ones that we already knew were nonprofits. So if you're not a nonprofit, you're going to, that you, the provider or the potential employee would have to like type in a new name and add to the list here. So right now it's searching for.
Yeah, and you choose other there, and then it populates where you tap in. The first one in the choices is other.
It's not there because
There it went.
there it is, other. And it'll let you add the facility name. Like I added little kids. Thank you, Dennis.
Anything else on maltreatment registry?
Tanya, I put a question in the chat. Previously, before the online system, we did not pay for the background checks. The school district has to pay for a background check for a new employee. For these every 2-year maltreatment checks, we've never had to pay for those.
Because you're a nonprofit?
Because we have a child care license, and the employee's already been through one background check that either they or the school district paid for. Then the ones we have to do every 2 years, in the past, we've never had to pay for those.
So the law says that the only people who don't pay are nonprofits and indigent folks. So I'm not sure why you haven't had to pay, but I'm just telling you, maybe Central Registry thought you were a nonprofit, but the law only allows for nonprofits and indigent folks to not have to pay. Dennis, if you want to add something or correct me on that, please do.
You are correct from what I understand. Yes.
And we'll research that. I see there've been a couple of questions about that, Jenny. Thank you for that. There could be some confusion, but we'll do some research on that. It sounds like the folks who do it have looked at that law, and that's the way the law reads. So I'm not sure why.
And we don't have, Tanya, we haven't had a super formal process. So I would suspect that if you haven't been paying, it's because we thought you were a nonprofit for whatever reason. You know, and I'm not saying that you presented that way, but those are the only two reasons. And so Central Registry, which is run by Dennis under me, they try and determine when they take a form in whether payment is associated based on nonprofit or not. So again, those are really the only two reasons there are.
So
And part of it could be because the forms are probably being received through child care licensing, and they may have been stamping them as nonprofit. We may have been accepting that. That may have been part of the reason.
Well, when we first started this several years ago, it was my understanding that was part of what the child care license fees paid for. We know we have to pay for the FBI checks, you know, every 5 years, and that's clear. But the maltreatment checks, of course, the program would have to pick up the cost of that.
There are many licensed child care facilities that do have to pay because they're not nonprofit.
Jenny, I can talk to the payment for the license. That actually is to offset the state criminal background checks. I am with that. And so that does offset. We don't charge for state criminal, only for FBI. And so that fee has all, and let me just frankly, it doesn't cover, we offset it.
Of course not.
But you know, the fees that are paid in all go to state police to pay for state criminal background checks. But I do think Dennis is right. It's probably when those are coming in, they always come into the Division of Child Care and someone here was stamping it. So we'll sort through that. And I apologize. That looks like that was a mistake on our part. So,
well, we certainly want to pay if we're supposed to.
Yeah. And the reason that we have really moved that going back to DCFS, because they're the ones that handle that. So, and you can see how that could get really confusing for folks that are not experts on the child maltreatment law that tells who has to pay and who doesn't. But we certainly we'll run it through legal. I feel like the folks that have been involved in it are very familiar, but we will do that as a formal process. That way we can give you guys a really formal answer on that. I do see a question though from an individual who said that they've received the guide for maltreatment checks for all states. They hire college staff. They found no, and they've been told they must contact the other states. I found no Texas contact information. Is there a preference or procedure to fill out Arkansas or home state? So maltreatment staff, Ashland, this is an individual presumably who's been living out of state.
Yep. So what's going to happen there is actually your best thing to do would be to call Nora or email Nora Fawcett, and she will get you to the right place, because some states are providing that information while other states are not. So it doesn't surprise me if you were having a little bit of difficulty with a particular state. The requirement is for us, though, that if you've lived out of state for more than, or in the last 5 years, then we have to track down those maltreatments. And so that process is, we thought at the time that the individual applicant could get the information and send it to us, but then we learned just a few weeks ago that actually, in order for that to be correct, the applicant can request it from the state, but the state has to send it directly to us. There cannot be a bypass of information. So information has to come from state to state in order for that process to be correct. So I'm not sure of your exact situation, so I hesitate to dive out there and answer that question, but what I will do is get you to the right people. But Nora and her team, she's got, I think there's about 3 people that are helping track down the out-of-state maltreatments now. So I will put that information in there along with my information, so you can contact either one of us and we'll help you get to the right spot.
Tanya, if you're talking, you're on mute.
You, Misha. Yes, I'm trying to mute myself so I'm not giving feedback, guys, so I apologize. Melissa had asked a question about, she says she has 5 background checks that have been filled out and notarized, assuming those are child maltreatment. My understanding from Misha is yes, if you've already gotten those done and they're on the paper, go ahead and submit those. That probably is going to, there's a little bit of lag time when you're doing them through the paper process. But if you've already done all the work, then absolutely, as you go forward, you can start testing the new system. But it's for maltreatment. We just need to make sure the form is correct. And I think that's the main thing, Misha, that I would.
Yes, and if you would, Melissa, if you have those forms filled out, obviously you can still send them in my mail, but if you want to write an email address on them, that would help us provide you the results via email versus having to snail mail them back to you. So if you want to provide that on the form when you snail mail them in, then we can make sure that you get the results via email as well. So what is currently happening is all the forms that are snail mailed in, Dennis and John and their team are scanning them into the system and putting the information in so that we are tracking all forms that we receive in our new system. But the ones that are coming in electronically are coming to us much faster than the ones that are coming via snail mail.
Thanks, Misha. I have no objections to Misha and Kevin hanging out with us, but I know there's some other questions. There may be a couple of other things. I know there's a comment. Jenny said that it took her 2 months. That there is quite a delay for out-of-state maltreatments, just because the processes in other states are all completely different. So be aware if you're hiring someone from out of state that there's probably going to be a time lag in getting results. One thing that I would say is document everything so that we have it for the records to show that you have made good effort and tried to get the information on this person. That's the main thing that we'll be looking for, is that you've submitted the background checks and the maltreatment checks for individual employees. The comment, Jill, yes, the results for an out-of-state maltreatment, they should be sent directly to the Division of Child Care. Ashlyn, there's a question there about what address should we mail them to? So if you guys can put that in the chat box.
I was just about to say, I'll pop that in the chat box for you.
And yes, the requirements for maltreatment are every 2 years. Okay, anything else on maltreatment? Because I want to let Misha and Kevin get off if they need to go do other things. And then I'm going to go back up because I know there's a number of things in the chat box related to other items, and I want to make sure we cover that. So I want to start this. I'm going to stay on background checks for a moment. Hey, bye, Misha. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Tanya.
Dennis.
And I'll send that PowerPoint right now to you and Ashlyn so that y'all can share. And thank you guys to all the childcare providers who are going to give this a try. And we want your feedback. So I know how y'all know how to get a hold of me, misha.martin@dhs.arkansas.gov, or you can always reach out to John and Dennis. We know that there might be a few hiccups. Please communicate that with us. We want to provide good customer service and improve the process for y'all. So thank you guys, and thank you, Tanya. Bye, everybody.
Yes, thank you. I think this is a wonderful process for us to test out. I want to talk about background checks. I know that some of you, and this is a change, so everybody just take a deep breath. This is a change, but it's a positive change. I know that some of you have already paid the $150 for the INA portal. If you have paid the $150 for the INA portal use to run a child care licensing background check, please figure out how to get the invoice that you paid and send those to our division. We are going to reimburse you for this first annual year. We will help offset the cost of that. We are working, and Kevin's still on, and he can talk about in the next phase, we are trying to get, and I know that Tammy Rowland had asked that question about pay as you go or a different process. We are working on that in the next phases so that by the time you have to renew your annual, you will have options and you won't have to incur that cost unless you want to do the $150 cost. Kevin, anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. As we were trying to, by the way, this is not our systems. This is not a DHS system. So just understand, this is an Arkansas State Police system. So when you guys log into the INA, what we call the INA portal, which is the group that does website development for the state, for those that aren't aware, but you know, that's a front end to what's called the Arkansas Fingerprint Identification System, which is really owned by state police. And then it integrates into the FBI system through the Arkansas Criminal Information Center. So we don't really, you know, they let us use it and customize it so that to try to make you all's life better, but it's not a DHS system. So when we first did this first phase, they had this subscriber account. So when you create those subscriber accounts, you're really getting an arkansas.gov account, which allows you to also do other things like renew your hunting license and other things. So, and that subscriber functionality was really intended for those organizations that had larger volumes. And we used that because it was there and it was a way to get it done. Phase 2 will allow, which we're working on now. We're actually waiting for that statement of work to come back to complete that. But hopefully by, you know, in the next couple of months, we'll have the ability for you to go and you know, do a one-time submission and just point of sale, much like you're going to Amazon and buying, you know, if you've bought a $5, you know, thing off Amazon, you would be able to go to the INA portal. If you just needed to run one check, you could just pay the $13 and whatever the FBI fee is for that one check. If you run more than, you know, a few a month, you know, up to that $150, I think it's actually going up now or has gone up a little. You know, the beauty of having that subscriber account is two things. One, you don't have to enter your credit card every time you do one. So if you do a bunch of those, it's very convenient to not have to whip out your card for that. The second thing is you'll get an invoice where that shows all the checks that you've run for the month. So from a tracking perspective, it can really be nice, especially for your accounts to go, oh, we ran 27 of these this month, as opposed to having to try to go to a credit card account and, you know, pick those out. So if you do any volume of those, you'll probably want to stay with the subscriber account. But if you're a small provider and you really only do 2 a year, well, then you really shouldn't have to pay $150 to do that. So we'll give you a point of sale option for that.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. There are a couple of questions. It looks like there are a couple of folks who are associated with school districts. I know Jenny has a note and Tara Armstrong both have put a note in that they ran background checks on their child care, early childhood license, probably pre-K program, and it erroneously routed to the Division of Elementary and Secondary Ed, because they also are running K-12 background checks through that portal that they're using. So Kevin, I know we've had some challenges, but is that because that isn't approved officially or something? Because they have access to the CHI apparently to be able to run, right, Jenny? You guys are using the correct CHI or ORI number to run the background checks?
I'm sure we did, because we don't interface with our central office and doing it. That's done separately in my office. We actually, two of them recently had to redo them because they just were lost.
And I don't know, Kevin, if it would be beneficial to take this offline and work with Jenny and Tara on individually who that was so that we can track that with state police. Because again, these are all a lot of changes and it could be something that none of us are even aware of. What we're trying to do for those of you who are associated with the school district or an education cooperative is to make sure that you all have access to be able to run background checks for early childhood program staff and not have to go over to the DHS office. We really want that to be streamlined for you. So I just don't know that every system has it approved and set up for that. And so we're working on that, Jenny. So we just need to check and make sure. I mean, it sounds like possibly did, but I know we've had a couple of other districts that have had similar problems and we've worked with them on it. And we do have a call with state police this afternoon to kind of continue this dialogue, because our goal is that you all would be able to run them if you have access to the INA portal in your district and you can do the fingerprint scans from your district.
Yeah, so that the challenge, the rub there is the fingerprint scan parts, right? Just to be, so without getting into a bunch of technical stuff, I'm gonna try to keep it. What happens is, and you can use two names for these fingerprint scanning, systems, if you will. Sometimes they're called live scans, sometimes they're called harvesters. There is a little difference there, but basically, those harvesters or those live scans have to be able to, ASP in their system has to enable them to be able to submit for a particular ORI, because that's statute based. So if you are, for example, a co-op and you have only, or you are a school district and you have only been authorized in the INA system or the ASP system to submit for the EDU education-based ORIs, then when you try to scan, you may even be able to pull the information back, but when you go to submit to ASP, they're going to reject it because your software, your fingerprint software, is going to send it as a EDU ORI as opposed to the CHI or CHW ORIs. So what we have to do is make sure that your two things. One, so the INA system, if you're authorized to run checks on behalf of that statute, whether that's ORI, EDU, CHI, whatever your statute is, as long as that works from anywhere, right? That's a web-based system. So you can do that at home, you can do it at your office, it really doesn't matter. The rub comes in when you start to try to submit fingerprints. If your fingerprinting station hasn't been, one, authorized by INA, and then you may also need to work, one of the things we find is that, for example, we have a vendor that provides those live scans in our county offices. And we have told our vendor to only allow certain ORIs because those are the ones that we are authoritative for. And what we found is that, the general public found out that DHS was doing civil-based fingerprinting. And so Joe shows up for, some completely other purpose, not related to DHS or child care or child welfare or any of that, and says, oh, I'm trying to become a truck driver, I need to get my fingerprint. And we don't want to be the processor for that. So our software will look and say, okay, what ORI was this run under, and submit it for those ones. we've seen that some other private harvesters and other software companies that develop these may have similar limitations. So you need to make sure that ASP has enabled your harvester or your live scan for your particular ORIs, and that your software is enabled for that. You may need to reach out to your live scan or your harvester vendor to make sure. So I suspect, Tanya, what's happening is that, you know, what we saw from some of the records that were submitted to state police where they were able to, the harvester was able to query the CBC system, which is what it does, to pull down the demographic information. But then when it puts this, it's called a NIST packet, if anyone cares. It's under CJIS, Criminal Justice Information Regulatory Environment, but it puts this sort of package, this electronic package together and ships that back to state police. But in where it says the ORI, it was using the ORIs that machine had been built for, in this case, EDU. And so you had a CHI request with a EDU based packet. And when ASP got those, they went, wait a minute, these don't match, and they'll reject them, which means you got to go back and do it again. So a couple of things to check there.
And I did see a note. So yes, all of that, please know that this will be recorded and you can go back and listen. But I did see a note that was actually maltreatments. And so make sure when you're doing that drop down, I think Misha and team, and we have noticed this, that if you don't hit that right radio button, or if you don't fill out that, yes, it could. And I can see where people could get confused and think, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, and it would pick the one for K-12 rather than the one for childcare licensing for the maltreatment. So just note that could be it. We're happy to go back, Jenny, if we need to, and double check. Any of you who are having that difficulty, you know, if you will let us know, we certainly want to track it down to help you and to help us know to let other folks, you know, it can help us with training and information and confusion that is definitely going to happen with all of these major changes happening with background checks. So I did notice there's a question from Casey Rayner about it's a 501c3, not needing to add expenses. Certainly understand that. Small program and are caught up on background checks. Do you have to sign up for INA right now? No, you actually don't have to sign up until you're ready to run a background check. But please know, Casey, if your entity has to run one and you pay the fee before we have everything set up for it to be handled differently. We are working on something. I think, Kevin, are we working with state police to have that sent to us going forward for that interim period? I know we talked about that last week. Again, guys, there's a lot going on, so I hate to confuse you, but if you've already paid the fee, if you've already paid the INA fee, please get with your accounting folks, find the invoice and send that to us. We will help you. But your question, Casey, if I understand, is you haven't paid yet. You don't have to pay right at the moment. You don't have any background checks that you have to run. It's should you go ahead and pay it. I would wait until you have to. We may have something in place by that time that it will just automatically come to us until we have this set up differently. Right, Kevin?
Yes, that we're working with state police. We may have some questions to come back. So it's not currently on. So if you need to run a check today, you're going to pay. But as Tanya said, but we are actively working. They gave us some questions around, okay, we need to figure out which ones you're talking about. And they talked about a possible enhancement for that. So Tanya, I just hadn't had a chance to come back to you on that yet.
That's okay.
They're working on some kind of way to for us to be able to do that.
So we want to help offset the cost. I've heard a lot about the cost. That certainly was something that we didn't anticipate completely at this amount when we first started this. Really all about the automation. It was really about trying to get you guys faster results. But there's a cost to that, and it's not our cost, as Kevin has pointed out, and it did go up during this process. So we will help us one time. By the time we get to the next year, after you've paid once, it's an annual fee. So if you November 1st until next November. And when that happens, at that point, we will have this point of sale, I think, in place. I'm going to feel very committed to that, Kevin, that's going to be ready. And that you'll be able to not have to pay the annual subscription, but you'll be able to do the point of sale. So hopefully that will help, guys. I'm going to switch. If there's anything else about background checks, there are a couple of other questions, and I just want to kind of get back to those. And I know we're right at the 11 o'clock hour. But I will tell you guys, I'm committed to your time here. We'll go a little longer to try to get all your questions answered. because we haven't had a call in a few weeks. So I'll stay with you and hang here for a little bit. There was a question about the supplemental payments. I want to just go back to that. We have used all of the CARES funding for supplemental payments. For essential workers, I don't have any other money, guys. I wish I could pull some off a tree, just like you do, but I don't have any. I can only pay now out of my regular child care block grant that pays for low-income families. I am committed to continuing that through the pandemic. And I know that Ashley put in the chat box right now, the governor has given an executive order through December 12th for that. So we are going to continue for low-income vouchers, but I can't pay supplemental. The question is, when did that stop? It stops when the money runs out. All of this CARES funding is one-time money. And once it's finished, and I've tried to reiterate that multiple times, once that 41 million is done, it's done. If there's money somewhere left, we might be able to go back, but right now we've used all of the supplemental. We've used all except for a couple of $100,000 on the payments for PPE. And it's right now it's down to the few providers that weren't ever paid because they're not set up as a vendor. So we're processing a final payment. And when we process this payment, gang, we're done. So I just want to be really clear on the call. We don't have any more money. This will take care of all of that money. The only remaining money is for cleaning and sanitation. So if you had a positive case, we put 3 million, and right now we've only used about not even 100,000. So I have at least a little over 2 million in that pot of funding for deep cleaning and sanitation. So if everybody goes, that's what was approved. But if everybody on this call goes, well, we'd rather use that for something else, let me just assure you, the way the cases are coming in right now, you will want that money because it's not going to get easier right now, gang. We are seeing when we have 96 active cases, that tells me that you're going to need funding to deep clean and sanitize. And we don't want to lift that 2 million. That 2 million won't even cover very many essential workers or supplemental payment. Those are so high, that 2 million would barely cover, it wouldn't cover all of them. And I can't just pay for a few, I can't pick and choose. So once it's done, it's done. So for the essential group, the people that are over income, all we can commit to is the money that we have in that category. And we'll finish that out through December 31st, but it's only for the rate that you're eligible for, not for the supplemental rate, because we don't have any more money there. So, and that's how these funds work. These CARES Act funds are one time in nature, and we bucketed it the way we bucketed it to give you, all these categories. But once we spend it, it just is gone. And Congress hasn't allocated any more. And I can't pay out of my regular voucher for low income families to pay for high income families that aren't eligible. That is against the law, and I will not commit a felony or break the law for that, guys. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear. I think that last payment would have been the last one for essential, but because the money is gone, there's not anymore. So I just want to be clear about that. For low income vouchers that you're serving, we will continue to pay the supplemental through December 12th. But I do want to say this, guys, at some point that has to end too, because we only have a finite amount of child care development block grant money. And I can't just keep paying it out, or we won't be able to add any eligible families that need it. And right now, with so many people losing their jobs, there are many more eligible families. So I just want you guys to understand the weight of decisions that are having to be made here. It is going right now through the governor's executive order, and right now that ends on December 12th for your low income. And we will continue the essential workers through the end of the year, and that funding will be exhausted. And that will take care of all of the CARES funding except for deep cleaning. And I suspect if the cases keep the way they're coming in, that we could use that before the end of the year, gang. I'm very concerned about the numbers. And I think, and people haven't even sent invoices in. A lot of providers have not even sent us invoices, and they're eligible. So I do want to make sure that we pay people that have had a case and have legitimately deep cleaned and sanitized. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. I don't feel comfortable at this point going, well, let's take that 2 million and put it over here when we are so at the height of this situation, or maybe not even at the height yet, and people are going to need it for deep cleaning and sanitation. So I do want to say I appreciate everything that you all are doing. I think these numbers from March through November represent, about 1,000 staff and children combined. And that's pretty amazing when you think about the number. Even at the lowest point, we could serve up to, I think, 80,000 children. When you think about those kinds of numbers, this is really small. It's concerning, but it's very small. And it's because you all have done such amazing work to clean and sanitize. That's part of our regular routine. When people talk about this, I'm like, this is what we do in early childhood. Like, we didn't wait for a pandemic to do that. These kids have to be, they are germ spreaders. So we have to clean and sanitize all the time. So I just want you all to know that that's kind of where we are with CARES funding. I don't know what's going to happen with Congress. I certainly can't make predictions. If you have not voted, today's your day. Go out there and get your voice heard. That could, maybe once they get an election over, we will have a decision about any future funding, but no future funding has been added at this point. They're all hung up, and I think it's probably partly election and partly a lot of other things, but exercise your right to vote. Whatever your heart is, you need to do that. That's important. Today's the day if you haven't already done that. I'm going to go back. I'm starting to preach. Those of you who know me, that's not a good thing. So let me get back on track here. So there's a question. I'm looking at some payment questions. Ivory, if your team, if the essential worker voucher was submitted prior to 10/9, will it still be processed? That's a really good question, guys. We are processing a small number. We are going through the applications that were in. There were roughly 800 to 1,000 that were in the queue that came in prior to October 9th, which was the last day we took official applications for essential workers. I asked the staff to take all of those that came in prior to October 9th and bucket them by those that came in complete, meaning they sent all the requirements, and then put those that did not have all the required documents in another stack. We will process from the stack, of course, that has everything complete, because we're not having to reach back out. And quite frankly, it is a state of monitoring this money carefully, because we can't go over. And, it's the risk of we might not even be able to get to December 31st if we add everybody. We would have to stop it maybe in November. So those are the kinds of decisions that are having to be made. But we are processing for those of you that have a family in. If they submitted all of their paperwork prior to October 9th, we are slowly adding. The staff are just working through that queue and trying to add any of those that they can, because they're really only going to be authorized for a month and a half, possibly. The other thing, several of you have been so incredibly kind to reach out to me and say, hey, I have some that got authorized and I'm not going to use it. If you know, I do want to share this because I think it's really important for you to know. I asked my staff to pull billing, unbilled vouchers on essential, and it was almost $1 million. Do you understand the importance? If I can't calculate what we have here, then it's a problem. That's why I'm staying so tight with this in terms of not adding big numbers. Because if you all have $1 million out there that you haven't billed for, then I have to calculate that into the amount that we have projected, and I can't go over. I don't have any other pot of money to pull from. So I do want you to know, if you haven't billed, if you're not going to use it, let us know immediately so that we can maybe get some of these other children that were in the queue already. But if you're not billing, please bill if those children have attended. Don't wait. I was a little concerned about that. And I'm worried when I hear frustration from you all about money. But when I see $1 million sitting out there up for grabs, that is concerning for me. I'm just being really honest, gang. So I do want you to know that. I know that several staff have put in their email addresses. Ashley, thank you so much. They put in the information about deep cleaning. I think that might be the last thing. Ashlyn, Kelly, anybody see anything in there that I've missed?
Just a couple of things I want to make sure we address. There was a question way up at the top that said, how will you know about your background checks? Don't forget that you will get an email alert. And that email alert will say, hey, you've got a status update on your INA account. Then you'll go into your INA account and you'll be able to see any status changes there. So that's the answer to that one. Also, there was a question, Tanya, and I'm just not sure I know the answer either. Where do they need to send the invoices for the INA subscription costs? Where would we like them to send that to? We could, I have a suggestion, and then you
Yeah,
can see
please,
what.
please do.
My suggestion would be for them just to go ahead and send it into that slot 150 where they'll be sending all the other maltreatment out of state. That way we'll have all of the criminal background, since this will all be associated with background, going to one address. So if that's okay with you, I can repost that address again. It's up at the top, but I don't mind putting it in the chat again, if that's okay with you, Tanya.
I think that would be great. I think it keeps it all together. So
Okay.
if you have an invoice that you've paid the INA, if you can send an invoice and some record of your payment, that might be a printed something, or it might be a copy of a paycheck, some way that we can know. We can certainly verify it with state police, but they are pretty overwhelmed too. So if you have documentation, it would be helpful. Cassidy Harrison, you had a question. I don't want to lose that one. It has to do with the email. And I think what Cassidy was saying, and Cassidy, please speak up, is really about not maltreatment, but criminal record checks when they're using INA. I think, Kevin, that if they go in there and put an email, they cannot use it more than one time. Is that, if I got that right, Cassidy, just give me a nod.
So just to be clear, Tanya, so when you log into the INA system, you'll use your INA user account, right? So, and you'll have a password, and that account has an email address associated with it, right? So where you enter your email address is in the scheduling system, right? So if you go to schedule a fingerprint appointment at one of our DHS sites, then there's a scheduling app, and that you can only make one appointment per email address. So if I'm Kevin and I need to make an appointment for Cassidy and Tanya, I can't use my address and set an appointment at 10 o'clock tomorrow for Cassidy and use my same address and set a 12 o'clock appointment for Tanya. What I would need to do is I can log in and set them for Tanya and Cassidy, but I'll need to use Tanya's email address for her appointment and Cassidy's email address for her appointment. And the reason that's important is because if we have, like, for example, we just closed it, and this came up yesterday. The reason we're using the scheduling app is for two reasons. One, so that we don't turn into the DMV, right? And we have everyone show up at lunch, right? And there's a line of 45 people trying to get their fingerprints done all in a 15-minute time period. And two, so that we can notify you if something is wrong, so that if you're having to travel, for example, we had a positive COVID case in one of our offices, and we have protocol. When we have that, we have to close the office and do cleaning. So the office manager has the ability to log into the administrative side of the scheduling app and say, we're going to be closed. What happens then is that the scheduling system will send you a cancellation notice and say, hey, you've got an appointment at 10 o'clock today, but we've closed our office. So this appointment's canceled. Please make another appointment, so that you get a notification. And if all those appointments came to Kevin, then Cassidy and Tanya could be en route and know that something's wrong. So that's the logic behind the one email address per appointment. I don't know if that helps clarify or not.
Cassidy, hopefully that's, yeah. If we need to work with you offline, Cassidy, please feel free to reach out to Nora and team, and we'll work with you to see if we can sort through. I see some questions about, if you paid with a school credit card, do you need to send it? I think if you can send the payment information, like if you did a check, if your school paid with a check, if you paid with a credit card, if the statement that shows that you have paid that, or if you got something back that shows that you paid it from INA, any of those things, let me tell you guys, we're getting audited by like 2 or 3 different sources. So in order for us to reimburse, we're going to need to have documentation. I would love to say we'll just pay you $150, but the legislative auditors are not really that nice. So I will need something to verify. So if you have a question about something, you can reach out to me via email or reach out to Nora and that team. You can send it through, and if we have questions, we'll reach back out to you. But anything that you have that shows that you made that payment for the $150 would be helpful, I think, for legislative audit in terms of documenting that we legitimately paid you for that to reimburse you. So,
And Tanya, Jenny is right. If I can just add real quick, you guys should be getting a invoice from INA. They send you guys a copy of that, and it'll tell you the month that you paid, and it gives you the information and how you paid. So you should be able to do that. So I would suggest before you try to go hunt down your HR people or accounting people or whatever, just try signing on your INA account. And I would imagine that you can get through that information there. Might save a little bit of time anyway. Okay, Tanya, you're on mute.
I was trying to keep that noise. I've got people that are out beside my office that are also on, and it helps the feedback. I see somebody that put in that they are not getting invoices. It's possible that we need to work with you on how to find the invoices in that system, because it is all electronic, and it may be that you're not familiar with that, if I understand it correctly. So
I can also, yes, ma'am, I can help with that. I can also give you the phone number for the INA subscription account. I can give you that phone number. They're very good to answer these types of questions. The telephone number is 501-683-5037. They, like I said, they're very good. I've heard great things from providers about them answering the questions and getting back with you when you had billing type of questions. I'll put that number in the chat box as well.
Okay, gang, we are definitely way over the 11 o'clock hour, but just a couple of follow-up things. Misha has already sent her PowerPoint. We will post it to the website so that you all will have it. Remember, this meeting is recorded. It will also be posted to the division's website so that you can go back if you have a question about anything or need something. I did see a few questions. I did have a note, and I didn't cover this, but if you, and I know that several of you have reached out in the chat box about this, but if you have a child, either school age or early childhood, preschool age child that has to be quarantined, that is on a voucher, Brandy or Ashley have put a note in there about how to reach them. But if you have questions about that, we are paying absentee billing when a child is being tested or has to quarantine, whether they're school age, on a voucher, or whether they're your preschool age children. So if you have questions about that and they're having to quarantine, I just want to make sure you're aware of that. During that 2-week period, and it could be longer, we will help offset the cost for children that we pay for in regular vouchers. And I saw Brandy responded to Randy on essential vouchers on school age kids. Those children should have been moved to part-time or half-time when school started, but they shouldn't have gotten turned off, Randy. They should still be, unless the parents aren't using it. So if you have questions about a child that was on essential, those were keyed through December 31st, unless a parent notified us that they no longer needed it. But we might have changed the time frame for school age children because they wouldn't have a full-time voucher if they're going to school. Now, we have several kiddos that may have a day where their school is closed. So we have all different kinds of arrangements, but we are verifying with school districts and documenting information so that when we're audited, that we are able to justify why we have a school age child that we're paying a full-time voucher, either one day a week or for a short period of time, maybe for a COVID case. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we were clear. I have had some providers call me about school age. And in general, we will work with you all and your school if the school is having to close for a short period or for a day a week. We have some schools that are doing a Friday off. So we do pay school full time for those days. So I appreciate, again, all of you. I know this was a lot today, but it has been a moment. We're back on our regular schedule. I know we're getting close to the holidays, but we do have a call scheduled on the 17th, Tuesday the 17th. I appreciate you all being indulgent and letting us bring Misha and Kevin back, really to talk about the opportunity to automate the maltreatment side. I know it's, again, a lot of change with background checks, including the changes that we discussed today. But when we get to 6 months from now or a year from now and everybody's using it, when you go to the automated system, and I do think someone asked in here about sending in, please do not send in FBI criminal or state criminal. Please use the automated system. That went into effect October 1. So you do all need to be using that system. I just want to make sure folks know that. If you pay, we will reimburse you for this first year. The next meeting, Ms. Franks, will be at 10 o'clock. We typically have these on Tuesday, every other Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And it is posted on the division's website. So I'm glad you got the information. Please encourage, if you have other colleagues out there, we have space for about 1,000, and I don't know how many we're on today. It looks like 118 right now, but I'm sure some of them have said, I'm done with her and this team, I'm getting off today. But again, thank you guys. Keep your children safe, keep yourself safe, and keep serving families, and keep, for one of my colleagues has started a Facebook, and I just want to do a little shout out for her in her area, but it's really a statewide effort. So, and it's in the chat box. Robin Slayton, she's just encouraging all of you to join a new Facebook group that she's created called Change for Childcare 2021. And she's posted that in the link. I just wanted to make sure that I did a little shout out for her. And just to tell you guys that if people don't understand the importance of your work, maybe they do now. And there are plenty of people who are really advocating for your work. So, you know, you have to do that too. It can't just be me, or it can't just be one or two of us. You all have to, in your community, help people understand that you're caring for 50 children of X amount of employees who wouldn't be able to go to work if you weren't serving their children. So do it well. And thank you so much for all of you being on, and appreciate you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, guys.